Your emotions are actually gold. Okay, they are the keys that will help you understand your triggers, why you're feeling what you're feeling, and they'll take you down this path to understand your healing journey. Without emotions, you wouldn't understand your desires and you would not understand your pain. So it's kind of like a bittersweet experience with emotions, but get ready to have a healthy relationship with emotions. Welcome back. This is Elena from Elena Talks, where I love weaving in psychological concepts with spiritual principles. And the more we start to understand how these abstract, spiritual, invisible forces work in practical ways, the more our life can change. So let me fix my camera first. There we go. Okay, so what I think is super important to understand about emotions is, what even are they? What are emotions? I look at it as energy stuck in motion when we are experiencing a lot of emotions and we can't figure out what's going on. So technically speaking, I look at energy, emotions, spirit, same thing to me. It's data, it flows, it helps us understand certain things. But the way I define trauma is anything that's happened to you that's so psychologically or emotionally disturbing, it was never processed out and there's no closure. Like there's no the end. Breath is sighed. Okay, we expelled it. Now that's done. It's still there. Okay? It's like a traumatic event. I'm still experiencing these same fears. I'm still getting, PTSD or whatever. If something is stuck, a fear, a memory, an experience you have, or some kind of core wound, which obviously goes into our experiences in life, because our brain and our body, it's like this massive library of all these different things that have happened, and it stores and it creates our code. Well, when we have a trigger, it literally activates a certain core wound, unprocessed memory, some kind of issue, and it will let us know via distress. And so, believe it or not, the clients for me that are actually kind of easier to work with are clients that have a lot of emotions. So you're probably clicking this video thinking, how do I control my emotions? Well, let's stop. Let's process emotions first, right? Emotions are going to help you. They're going to give you, again, the data as to what's going on. And sometimes for me, it's easier, or I can only really do healing work when I'm working with women who are connected enough to their body so that they can identify the emotions they're feeling, they can label the distress, they can pinpoint it in their body. That I can work with. You know what's really hard to work with? With people, and there's nothing wrong with this is just another state. Again, listen to my polyvagal theory video about the different nervous system states. When I'm with a person who has no access to their emotions, it tells me either two things, probably two, I would say. Either they're in such freeze dorsal collapse mode that they're completely disconnected, like that's how bad it is, or sometimes I've worked with clients that, in my opinion, are so medicated, they're over medicated, they're zombies. And maybe they don't feel the pain, but you have to feel something to get healing. It's like if I go to the doctor and I'm just kind of like, my body hurts, it's totally bruised, and the doctor's like, well, where do you feel it? And you're like, I don't know, I don't feel anything. Versus like right here in this elbow, that's a lot easier to like work through and figure out, even if it's connected to something totally different. Again, that's some kind of data pinpointing, locating. And so I remember I worked with a client once who was so, I have a lot of opinions about these and I'll try to hold back, but so medicated. I was like, you're a youngster and you're just zombied out. Like you can go through life, and that makes me really sad if you have no life to even think of. But I can't do healing work unless you have some access to some kind of pain. And I know it's so hard. And if I even think of like helping people, like people who've numbed out to pain, I'm like, I'm sorry, but we have to kind of feel it without you going into immediately numb out mode. We have to be able to feel something to heal. Okay, you can only heal when you feel. And yes, granted, it has to be ideally in a state of some kind of presence and safety, which sometimes takes time. But my point is, again, don't get so distressed where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so overwhelmed with emotions. Okay, we'll pull you back and help you understand what's going on. Whereas the other side of the spectrum of people, they're not feeling anything, and there has to be some kind of activation and feeling for them to be able to connect to their body, and then again, get the same data to work through the issue. So I kind of broken down, as always, my little notes, these three parts of if you have a hard time controlling your emotions, what's going on? So again, like I said, the first one is emotions. You got to understand them. They're not necessarily good or bad. They're data. Like, what do you enjoy in life? What does feel good? And if you want to get very specific, we can say, oh, this is my emotional state, but what oftentimes it really is, it's your, not just your psychological state, but your physiological state, right? I feel joyful, my body's open, I feel light, my muscles are smiling, I'm moving my body. Like, that's happiness, that's joy, that's confidence. And then I'll work with clients that, let's say, will say, well, my emotion is, anxiety. Okay, well, how do you know, how do you feel, how do you know it's anxiety, other than your body will tell you? I feel sharp pain in my chest, or I feel sick, or I'm like this, or I'm spacey, or I'm fidgety, or whatever, right? Again, another reason to, like, why it's so good to be connected to your body to identify what's going on and where. And the second thing I wanted to start to break down is I'm having a hard time controlling my emotions. Okay, I understand maybe grammatically that's what we're typing into YouTube and that's what we're trying to figure out. But let me just say this. Suppressing emotions or denying them or pretending they don't exist or invalidating them never really heals anything. It just continues to shove the issue under the rug. What people need to be able to do, and again, I work with women, coaching, counseling. Let's just say this. Sometimes if I'm working with someone who's gone through something tragic, something sad, there's something not going on, like, I'm not gonna say like, oh my goodness, you're crying a lot, that's bad, even though like your mom just passed away, or just something just happened with your dog, or this dream job that you had everything signed up for, like it totally collapsed, now you've lost money or opportunity, or like, we have to be able to appropriate, if that's the word, like emotions to life experiences, right? How do we even know like what happiness and joy and love feels like until we actually know what the opposite feels like? Like, it's like if we don't have like the light colors and whites and pinks and blah blah blah, then we won't know, like, we can't appreciate the black and the dark colors, because together it's that masterpiece. And I know people will be like, well, I'm not here to like, I don't want to have these like bad emotions, but my point is there are normal reactions to certain things. There are normal times to feel hurt, upset, unheard, sad, unseen, right? The list goes on. There are normal times where that comes up. And sometimes people go through seasons of feeling for a long time and healing and letting this stuff come out. So, because that's just normal, okay? Like, I don't expect someone whose family member just passed away to like snap back the next day. It's a process. And the thing is, like, I remember working with, and I've worked with so many women who are like, I'm always emotional, what's going on? And yeah, we can look at like medical stuff, like adrenal glands and all these different things, but oftentimes by the time people, and I wish it wasn't the case, but it is, by the time someone comes in for some kind of coaching, counseling, healing, inner work, they've already had quite a few things have happened where now they're like, I can't do this anymore, like, I need help. And then we start to sift through all the stuff that's happened, and I'm not saying this needs to take years and years, but there's enough stuff that's happened where it's almost like, I think of it like a sewer system. Like, again, emotions need to have energy in motion, but when they're stuck, it's clogged, right? And I tell my clients sometimes, like, by the time I see them just crying and crying, I'm like, yeah, like, your pain, your feelings, your everything that's been inside, that whether you've been disconnecting or pushing it away or in denial, it's finally leaking out via tears. You're human. So, like, validating people, like, nothing wrong with emotions, but it is data to guide us to what is going on. Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling sad? This is why, like, emotional intelligence is important, and why, good job if you can feel it in your body. You kind of almost have an upper hand by tuning in and sitting. And instead of, again, suppressing, denying, just telling yourself it doesn't matter. Okay, just embrace the fact that you are experiencing it and let it start to flow out. And, I remember working with clients where it's like, they're like, oh, I just keep crying. And, and there comes a point where in the healing journey, you have to start to do things different. You have to start to identify how are you playing into certain cycles, dynamics that are maybe causing pain. Like romantic relationships or friendships or job. I mean, I guess anything in life. If you're not liking what you're seeing, you keep seeing a pattern, instead of like blaming people or saying they're making me do this, or because of you I'm crying, or you upset me, we're giving way too much power away to external things, and we need to look within and see how are we participating in the same dynamic, and how do I solve this problem and stop inflicting this self-punishment pain. It's no different than me working with girls who've dated the same guy who's hurt them over and over, and then they go back to them, and it's like, where logically do you know, think that you will experience something different to someone who's proven to you every, you know, X amount of weeks, he starts to, you know, his true colors start to come out, and you're the one punished. But then who's the one doing the punishing? You're the one going back to that relationship. And if you guys have listened to my channel enough, I talk about like trauma or strange decisions, or how we like repeat certain issues and cycles. Like, they're not logical. Everyone can sit back and be like, that's not a good idea, you know, be the friend that gives advice. Why are you going to that relationship? Why, you know, can't you see, like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Like, we have all these things, but we don't understand that we are so subconscious or emotionally driven. I do a lot of work on schemas, maladaptive schemas, where it almost like it's an assessment that lets people know where they're stuck in certain ways of life and behaviors and cycles. And you can complain and say, I'm never gonna be, you know, with a person like my mom or someone who does this. And guess what we end up doing? We repeat the same dynamics, the same cycles, because whatever has been programmed within us, we continue to play out that program until, like I passionately say, get on board, learn your system, identify what is going on, what are you attracting, what within you is attracting X, Y, and Z. And that's the only way we can start to break off cycles, break it off generationally, and start to heal and walk in the abundant life that I keep talking about. Me complaining about other people causing my emotions is not going to do anything. Me starting to figure out how I can actually can heal and strengthen myself to experience life and life abundantly. Okay, I prefer that. It does take a lot of humility, but so we have to be able to feel in order to heal. And so it kind of goes into my third point. I can only really help people or clients or even myself, okay, when I am in a state of some kind of like healing or presence and safety. It's kind of like when I see people like in situations where they're just like being hurt, not just physically, but just like, it's like a bad friendship. Let's say it's a toxic friendship. Like, how are you supposed to heal when you keep coming back to that? A lot of times it's like we need to give ourselves breaks, or just kind of cut off for a little bit, to go into maybe a hermit mode a little bit, I think, to give ourselves the time, the place, and the space to heal. That context of healing is so important in my opinion. People ask me all the time, well, can I just heal by myself? Well, I guess you can have some level of like reflection and being able to give yourself, again, the time, the space, the place to heal, to gather your thoughts, to cry, to experience, to yell, to like, you got to do some of this stuff and get in connection with yourself. But because, in my belief, and attachment theory talks about this, we get hurt in our primary relationships. That's our initial context. Well, guess where we heal? Mostly in relationships. You can think like, I'm good, I'm healed, when you're single, when you're by yourself, when you're doing your own thing. But there is nothing like close relationships, like therapeutic, counseling, coaching, you know, those type of stuff. Everyone has these different umbrellas that they market the same thing, I think, or similar stuff. That's awesome. Like, let's say you're working with me, I'm going to be able to help you experience your emotions, or tell you, okay, this makes sense, or this is valid, or oh, this is the psychological word, or provide education as to what dynamic or function. Oh, this is what codependency looks like. Oh, you have this maladaptive schema called vulnerability to harm, or right, there's power in education, but there also has to be that integration mode, which I help clients actively process and integrate everything we're learning. Now, another relationship that I think can give you healing if you are mindful about it, and if ideally both partners are on board, is intimate relationships. The reason I think that deep healing can happen in intimate relationships, so I'm married, our childhood wounds will come out when we're in this like relationship, like, okay, now you're with me, like you're gonna see all of me. And whether my husband triggers me, which I don't really believe anyone really has power to trigger you unless something is, you already have, issues coming out. It's really easy to be like, look what you did. Whereas if you guys are familiar with shadow work, a lot of times the shadow is our insecurities, our issues, our pains, our traumas, our just core wounds, our everything. It's almost this invisible like shadow overlaid neatly over the other person, and it's like our issues. And so I could be like to my husband, look, you make me feel insecure. Okay, well, can someone make you feel insecure if you're not already feeling insecure about that? Like, I've had times where my husband said something and I was like, oh, and actually he meant it as such a compliment, but because I misunderstood something, or I'm already struggling with it, right? Your mind pulls it in as, oh no, he's validating what I'm already struggling with. And so that's why I really believe, again, the question is, can people heal by themselves? Okay, I think there is a level of healing people do need to do sometimes in solidarity, but I just don't know if, again, you are going to experience the acceleration and the growth by yourself. In fact, oftentimes when I have people who are like, I'm going to do it by myself, like, that's good, but like, you're only going to go so far. And I'm just going to challenge you with love and ask yourself, why do you need to do it by yourself? Okay, like, let's say finances are not an issue, although I do believe in where your priorities are, that's where your treasures are. Like it goes back to vulnerability. Like, someone's gonna help me, someone's gonna see the rawness of my heart. Am I gonna be judged? This is embarrassing. Well, you're already kind of regurgitating or bringing up to the surface things that you're probably struggling with. Hence why maybe working through someone and helping you kind of like pair bond or develop some kind of more secure attachment would be a good a good thing to have with, like, let's say a therapist, a coach, a teacher, mentor, etc. So let me check my notes real quick to see what's going on. Okay, so when we are in a place where we can tune into our body, our emotions, like let's say you're like, I can't stop crying, or I'm just feeling so angry, give yourself the time, the space to heal. Go to your room. Like, if you need to drive somewhere by a park, like, do what you got to do. Tune into your nervous system and your body, or like, if I call it like the feminine essence within us, within women, because I work with women, they can tell you like, okay, today I need to go out and walk around in nature and process something, or today I need to just like close my door, like take my blanket and just kind of sit and process it. Like, your body will kind of tell you what you need, and then tune in, let it out. Like, I feel irritation, or I'm just feeling like, again, angry, or I'm feeling like I want to cry, or just like, let yourself express this. This is good, and see what starts to come up. Maybe nothing. That's fine. If you're still crying, let it out. Give yourself the time of the day. Now is your time for you to give yourself the attention, to be seen. Like, you see yourself, you hear yourself. Don't expect other people to do that for you if you can't even do it for yourself. You don't need, again, we're not outsourcing validation or help if like, sometimes we can just do it for ourselves. And tune in, again, what does it feel like? Oh, I feel like an angry 7-year-old, or I feel like, oh, I remember, when I was at church, in my church when I was in my childhood, or when I'm in school in middle school, or I'm actually in grad school. Like, float back, like, use your imagination. Like, where is this taking you? It just reminds me when I was just not treated seriously when I was working on my volcano project in 7th grade, and I felt so dumb. Good. Sit with that. Process. Let it all come out. If you need to write it down, do that. If you like, however you need it, okay? As long as you're reflecting. And then you get to access, if I could say, that inner child and talk to her. What does she need? Imagine, like, who does she need right now? Is there a specific teacher that could come in and help you in this situation? For some of my, like, more my religious people or Christian people or whatever, like, it is helpful to bring in God or Jesus or Or you imagine your dad coming into this situation and him helping you, or like you get to be creative. Like, do you invite someone to reprocess this memory to start to close it up and get the closure you didn't? Like, I'll go into situations many times where I'm like feeling emotional or whatnot, and I know that like the only way to get it out and heal and grow is to go into it and sit with it and attend that wound. I've had many times where I'm like, what did like little Yelena need at that time? I just wanted to be seen or hugged. Okay, so then imagine that. Literally in your imagination, like this is the coolest, like we technically were time traveling to our wounds and healing them by being able to be present and pay attention and re-access the whole situation and give yourself what they didn't back then, and the current you will imprint that new data and you will start to feel relief. Maybe not right away, maybe it takes a couple times, or like the same feeling comes into different memories throughout your life. Okay, just again, go into it. Like Holy Spirit's bringing it up, your emotions, your brain, all of it. You are designed to go into the abundant life in your soul. So go into your soul and clean this stuff up. Imagine yourself getting that hug. I'll imagine Jesus hugging me. I'll imagine my husband. You get to decide what brings healing into your soul. No one can do that. In fact, I can even suggest something to you, but your soul will know if it's rejecting that or not. So give that inner child like the time, the space, and maybe she's not even talking right away. Maybe she's just too angry or crying or pouty or feels helpless. Sit with her. Do not abandon. Do not dismiss. Do not invalidate. Stay present. Because again, if you can't even do it with yourself, like you can't expect someone else to do that. So in short, to say this shortly, you can't force healing. You can't be like, okay, stop crying. Like we're not doing that. Pull yourself by the bootstraps. Just get going. Like we're women at the end of the day, okay? We are not gonna operate like men, or I wouldn't even say that that's like, is that masculine mode? Is that just this punishing, demanding voice? Regardless of what it is, by the fruit, you can access the spirit that is guiding you, that is helping you. And the fruit, even in the Bible, talks about like the fruit of Jesus. Think of like joy and peace and abundance, and just like, what is the kingdom of light, of heaven? Like, what does that feel like? What does that sound like? That's going to be your navigating voice. But sometimes I'll work with clients where they just like the voice that they're reiterating, or they'll say it's Holy Spirit or whatever, and it just sounds so rude or so demanding or so bullying. And I'm just going to challenge anyone. Maybe this is a side note video, but just listen to the voice that's like you're even using to process yourself. Because if you're still yelling at yourself or bullying yourself or telling yourself stop it or stop crying or it's fine, like the tone of voice, the demanding, or like tune into that, because maybe there's some healing even in that voice, that internal compass that needs to happen. But that's a side note. So I just wanted to say, do you have a hard time controlling your emotions? Okay, hopefully this video kind of helped you break down a little bit of what that journey looks like. So I hope you're able to subscribe, like, comment. Do check out my Talk Shop membership. It's a subscription. Every month I'm adding new content, new information. I go in depth. I provide education, resources, vulnerable stories from my own life experiences. I answer your guys' questions, Q&As, all of the above. It's all centered around women healing and doing the inner work and being very, responsible, honest, accountable as to the experience that they want to have. And for a member rate, in addition, you can also add on individualized coaching where I can help guide you in your specific life situations. And I believe, if you click on my membership, I believe you can sign on to it even if you are not from this state or from the United States of America. So I hope this is helpful, and I'm going to continue to publish more content to help you guys with your inner healing experience. Because remember, the state of your inner world will be absolutely reflected in your outer world. So blessings and abundance, and I'll talk to you all later.